Hi, and welcome to Hypothetically Intentional, where we ask the question, what if we set intentions with everything we do? I'm your host, Michelle Albers, and today I have Jonna Duke with me. Welcome, Jonna.
Thank you for having me, Michelle.
I'm really excited about this conversation. I don't even know how long we've known each other, but I do know that we were meant to connect.
Mm,
And before we go into all of that, would you be interested in setting our intention for today?
I will. Thank you. All right, let us ground, root, get settled in. And today's intention, I'd like us all to feel whole and complete within ourselves, to know that we are truly meant to be here in this time, that we have purpose, and that our showing up as authentically ourselves is really, really the true purpose of life. Mm.
Hmm. And that says it all. Ah, you're speaking my language. That's so beautiful, girl. I had the goosebumps when you were saying it. It's like, yes.
Mm.
And that reminder, like every damn day, like that. Like that should be the soundbite for this episode is like that, because that's it. Like, mic drop, we're done. Thanks, Jonna.
I wish that I was as versed in doing what I say, but I am
Yeah.
definitely on my journey. I am learning how, and the best way for me to learn is to do. So yes, I am not necessarily 100%, as evolved as that sound, but I am definitely on my way.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, I think it's a process. I think it's a journey. And I think the more we can drop in and remind ourselves that it's okay to be whole while we feel imperfect, so to speak,
Yeah, it's okay
that
to
we
do
still
things
get to,
scared.
yeah, we still get to be whole. There's no expectation of perfect unless we're putting that upon ourselves. So
Yeah,
I just think everything you just said was so beautiful.
thank
Uh,
you.
so one of the ways that we connect and have connected over time is you bringing Y12SR
Hmm.
into the sacred space that is JD. And I would love for you to tell me, and it sounds like it's evolving, like it's going to shift into something new and different. And I would
Yeah.
love for you to talk about, well, whatever that, however you feel called to talk about it. But I just feel like part of the reason we teach things and are called to do things is because it's helped us ourselves on our journey. And I would just love to hear whatever you're willing to share about all of that. Or if you want to shift gears and go somewhere else, that's fine too.
Oh,
It's an open
I,
door.
oh, thank you for permission to just be me, authentically me. I'm okay starting with Y12SR. Uh, I'll talk about how it started and then why we are going to shift it. So Y12SR was something that I found. So let's back up even more. I found yoga way back. I think it was 2018. I found it long before that, but 2018 is when I decided that I needed yoga to be a foundational part of my practice. And what I say with that is that it was allowing me, everybody says the cliche mind, body, spirit, but it's like, it's true. It just sounds cliche because we use it all the time, but it's true. And in 2017, 2018, I decided that I wanted to give sobriety a chance and see what my journey would look like then. So I did. I chose to become sober, and I just dropped into yoga as a foundational tool for spiritual practice. I had a lot of like religious trauma, so I was looking for something that wouldn't trigger that and would just still allow me to develop my practice. The other really rad thing about yoga for me was that I have such a disconnect with my physical body. And
Mm.
yoga was this really gentle, just very neat way for me to learn how to connect with my physical body again and stop using it as a shield and let it be an integrated part of who I am. So as I'm going through this journey and I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Why isn't everybody else using these tools? I'm like, we got to bring yoga to the sober community. I found Y12SR. So Nikki Myers created that with her partner at the time. And they decided that they needed to implement the foundations of yoga into sobriety. And so I didn't have to repackage anything, right? She did it.
Yeah.
I went through her training, and Y12SR is a donation based 2 hour yoga and support group experience. As the years, we brought it to JID in 2019, or was it 2020? I can't, yeah, it's 2019, right?
I think it was right out of the gate. Yeah. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
2019. And what happens is these individuals show up and they don't really, they're there for the sober component. They know a little bit about yoga, but what they get swept into is just this mindful interaction of working around the group as we are, processing, meditative prompts and sharing our story. And then it becomes this really safe space to talk about things that you might not want to talk about with your sister or partner or even your best friend because it might have shame for you.
Hmm.
And we're anonymous there. So we show up, we talk about whatever we want to talk about. Sometimes it's a secret or vulnerable space that we're in. And then we take it to the mat and we would process it through physical movements, very somatically, trauma informed style. This group has been going on since, like I said, 2019. Recently, I decided that I would like to open it up, so to speak, a little bit more and encompass all trauma. And so we are migrating from Y12SR to what I like to call yoga to heal. And we'll follow a similar format where we create this one is going to be much more intentional with ritual. I find ritual to be very grounding and just a very nice way for me to collect myself and feel more whole. So we'll do that. And then we will also have a more structure to the group share. And then we will also move through a very somatically, intentful movement practice. The neat thing about this practice is you don't have to be able to touch your toes. You don't even need to be able to sit on the ground. We get you the props and you show up. And I'm more of a fan of you moving in a way that feels great for your body in this time than you being able to hit any perfect poses. The real goal of the class is not for you to perform, it's for you to integrate.
Yeah. Well, it's weird when you said, I don't know why it's weird, but it felt weird. When you said for you to perform, I heard inform. It's like, it's not, you're not performing, you're informing like yourself of who you are in that moment. Your
Mhm.
body, like no, of noticing how what information your body is giving you in this particular class,
Exactly.
and that's it. When we actually like just get quiet and listen intentionally with guidance. And I will say your cues in these classes or in any class I've ever taken with you is they're just, I don't know, profound is the word that comes in because
Mm.
they're so intentional and mindful and they're very much connected to like being present, but also being reflective with intention. Like there's such an intention to heal. Like they just feel so much, and maybe that's not fair, but in the now, they feel deeper then sometimes it's just a different intention. Like the intentionality of your class is it takes you to that deep place. And because it's a safe and sacred space, you have the opportunity to get as vulnerable as you want to get, or
Mhm.
as vulnerable as available to you in that moment. Some days it's like, yes, I'm all in today. And then next week it's like, I'm more of a fly on the wall this week. And then the next week it's like, I don't even feel vulnerable, but like last week, if I would have said the same thing, I would have felt vulnerable. But something's changed from then to now, and I feel different about it, and it's bubbling up, and I'm like ready in a way that it actually feels different than vulnerable, but still here and available for me, if that makes sense.
I want to say vulnerability with confidence.
Yeah, maybe.
That's been a big
Yeah.
word. Confidence is a word that I've been setting in my intentional practice. I feel okay, we're gonna go wild. Soul retrieval. Like that's like my thing right now.
Oh,
Grabbing all those little parts of us that got fractured along our journey and just creating that space so that we can integrate that version of us back into us and then right complete that wholeness. But as each time you bring another part of you back in, I feel I don't know what's the word. I feel like I'm taking up my own space and that there is confidence in me being able to take up my own space. I belong here. I'm here with intention. I'm here with purpose. I was supposed to be here. Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just show up differently. So that progression from week to week to week, as we fold in ourselves back into ourselves, we're naturally, more capable, empowered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you bring up the inner child stuff, and we just did a workshop on this a few weekends ago. And what you said brought me to a place that I'm just finding fascinating in this moment. And that is, we go back now to pull forward our confidence, our light, our power, who we really are that we kind of left behind in those spaces of trauma. But I find it interesting that like we leave those pieces behind, but yet we pull forward
The
the
trauma.
story and the trauma itself. That is what is the block and keeps us stuck. You know what I mean? And I think that's human and natural and supposed to be, so to speak, right? But I just
Yeah.
find it fascinating that like it's so easy to pull forward those parts that are the wounds and the pain and the memories of the and
Yeah.
yet we forget that there's a whole empowered, powerful, confident, piece of us that we just left in that moment or we left in that time period or we left in that space. And I too have done inner child work and soul retrieval or whatever you want to call it. Like I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways for that and everybody's comfortable with different versions of it. But really it's pulling your light from that time period back into your and integrated into yourself so that you're not only telling yourself the story that's no longer true, you're not actually there anymore.
Yeah.
You're here right now. And when we leave those places behind us, it's like, or those pieces behind us, it's like, okay, well, how do we pull it forward? And I believe we're full, complete, whole, even with those pieces in those past experiences. I believe we're always whole and never healed, which is maybe a shitty thing to say, but I think there's always more healing to do. And I think we can be whole always. And
Hmm.
healing is always available to us as it progresses and unfolds, and we're ready for it. And that is said in complete love and compassion, not guilt, shame, and judgment of, well, what do you mean you haven't done it yet? It's like, yeah, because maybe you weren't supposed to. You know what I mean? It's like that's not
Yeah.
yours right now. So leave it alone.
Yeah.
Like, let's be mindful about where we're at and what is here for us. And so,
Exactly. And someone's progression, their timeline, the timeline of their progression is just, I always want to say this, it's perfectly the way it's supposed to be.
yeah.
Right? Like they're unfolding, or I like to call it blossoming. Like
Mhm.
we're not here to wake someone up. We are here to support wherever they're at and allow them to blossom. You can't force a flower open. You can just wait, give it the water, give it the sun, give it whatever it needs, and just allow it to unfold at its own pace. And so you're that provides me a lot of compassion with somebody else's journey to say it's okay. Maybe they're showing up in the way that they're showing up is an opportunity for me to reflect on some of my own work to heal at this time. I don't know if that's not necessarily where you're going, but it's one thing that I think about often is that I can't force myself to blossom faster.
Right.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
I
I think
can
alchemy
nurture
and
it.
nurturing. Yes, that is just said. That's it. Alchemy and nurturing. Like a flower doesn't grow if it doesn't have the right elements. There's alchemy there. There has to be sunshine, water, and the right amounts. You can't put too much sunshine on, or it's. And so I
Yeah.
see, I see the healing journey as like it's always an inspiration. Like if I'm inspired by something, myself or someone else or circumstances, because the alchemy is perfectly like I don't even like the word perfect, but it's exact in that moment for exactly
Yeah.
what I need to have the
Yeah.
blossoming, then yeah, let's do it. And
Exactly.
sometimes we don't see it. Sometimes we don't feel it. Sometimes we feel it and we stuff it. Like, I don't know what this is. This is an uncomfortable feeling. It's new and I don't know how I feel about it. So I'm just going to tuck that away because,
Yeah.
and I think that's all okay too. I think it's
Yeah.
all okay. Like you get to be you in any given moment and that's always whole. And there's always healing. There just is, you know?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
not, there just is. There's always healing. Always.
A
I've
hundred
never met
percent.
anyone fully healed ever in my entire life, ever.
Yeah. I would challenge them if they said they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you not? What corner aren't you hanging around in yet?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a
Yeah.
superpowered flashlight somewhere for you to find the things. And sometimes I don't think we're supposed to. So I'm not saying that we're supposed to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Find all the things. I think that's not, I don't believe that's a thing. I just think we get to have awareness, have confidence, have
Yeah.
courage, and have just an awareness and an openness to look and observe, and then use your discernment to decide what you need in any given moment. And what that looks like is different for everyone.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. That is like another space that, as that confidence grows in me, where I trust my discernment more. And I was thinking about this morning when I was thinking about what we might talk about. And one thing I thought about is like part of my trauma, right, was around some of the religion, right? And I was thinking about the fact that like as I was brought up in a religious home and had friction around me being told how my spiritual practice needs to evolve, I was realizing I'm like, oh, that was someone else's spiritual practice. It worked
Yeah.
really, really well for them. And I get that they want me to evolve as far as they got, but everybody's spiritual practice is so unique that I cannot take Michelle's spiritual practice and apply it to me and expect it to work the same for me.
Yes.
Right? We have to trust that and it doesn't all need to look a certain way, right? Like you could go to a baseball game and have a spiritual experience there,
Yeah.
right? So just trusting yourself to flow and show up in all these spaces, and then hopefully, right, with a little bit of openness so that you can take in what's being delivered to you.
Yeah, that's it. Self-trust is such a huge part of the healing journey, I think. And some people get like actually triggered by that phrase. And it's like, well, we can
Mm,
call it something different. It's really about you being able to observe yourself
hmm.
and have some awareness around what you might need, that discernment piece. And
Yeah,
so many of us don't ever look, how can we possibly know? And it's like, well, what
yeah,
if we just start? What if we just start somewhere? It doesn't have to be like the big grandiose, okay, I trust myself to solve all my problems and everything's great. Like that's not the point anyway.
yeah, yeah. No,
That's not the point. It's more
right.
like, do I trust myself to figure out or to listen to or to understand what I might need right now?
Yeah,
And that's it. And I think we're here. Honestly, I think we're all here just to love ourselves.
yeah,
Because when we learn to love ourselves, that ripples out into the world. And then your purpose just it blossoms, it unfolds, it unravels, it reveals itself to you when
yeah.
you lock into that self love. And then
Exactly.
that serves the world. So when I say we're here to love ourselves and learn to love ourselves, that sounds really selfish and egotistical and me. But I'm like, no, no, we're taking the M from the me and making it a we. But in order to do that, you have to see the me first. You have to love the me first,
Yeah,
and then you can serve the we. Otherwise, everything is, you know, messy. And it's
exactly.
going to be messy anyway.
How can I practice something I don't even know how to do, right? Like, how am I going to give you love if I don't know how to give me love, right? Like, it has to begin with you. You have to authentically be able to deliver this to others. And the only way to do that is by embracing it and making it part of your life. I will say, I love ricocheting into other areas.
I love it too.
Um, One of my most favorite and cherished practices that I found was nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg. And I started this practice with the ideas that I was going to become this peaceful communicator and solve the world's problems, right? What I found is that as I started to deep dive practice into this, that my language with myself completely altered. No
Oh,
longer was I
beautiful.
having this anxious, angry brain. I was doing things like, oh, Jonna, well, you had a lot going on. I understand how you just like let that fall apart. That makes sense. You needed X, Y, and Z, and you weren't aware of it in that time to go get those resources. So, yeah, you couldn't accomplish it. These are not the kinds of conversations I'd ever had in my own head before, right?
Yeah.
It was the beratement. How could you not figure this all out? Why did you do that? Rah, rah, rah. And once I could have that language with myself, everything changed with everyone
Oh, yeah.
else, right? All of a sudden, traffic, who cares that they cut me off?
Yeah.
I just look at them and I wave and I say, I understand you're having a really busy day today. Please take that spot, and I just wave them on with peace and love and I let it go. Um, I don't want to set up any false pretenses that I'm like that 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I get angry. But now when I get angry and I show up in a way that I'm not proud of, I can have a different conversation with myself about why that happened. And then the neat part is when you have these different conversations, you start preparing for the next time that happens. So when
Yeah.
I say, oh, I really needed, I don't know, I needed more rest. I should have created space for breakfast that day. I didn't get a hug from somebody when I wanted a hug, you know? Oh, well, next time I'm gonna go do that and see what happens.
Hmm.
But that's an awareness I wouldn't have had if I didn't have those conversations with myself.
The conversations we have with ourselves, I mean, they're the loudest voice in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the loudest voice in your room? Being your being, right? Like, I mean, sometimes the loudest voice in my room is my angry teenager or my wounded 3-year-old or my, really distraught 8-year-old or, my inner children, basically. Like, those
Yeah.
ages, whatever. And it doesn't have to be ages, but like there's parts of myself that come forward and I'm like, oh, you're really loud. This is not my higher self. I recognize that it's not my higher self voice or my higher self being. And so, what, like to pause and just like, what do you need? What did you need? And what do you need right now? Like, why are you overtaking the space in my head? And instead of being like, oh, why are you taking the space in my head? I can be like, hey, what's happening?
Yeah.
What do we need in this moment? And like, right, it's like I talk about it like we're different parts of ourselves, and we are, but we're also still like, I'm me.
Yeah.
And me is a lot of different parts and a lot of different emotions and a lot of different feelings and a lot of different, logical mind stuff processing and a lot of heart and a lot of soul. And it's like, what happens when you braid that all together and just look and accept that it's gonna be messy sometimes and that
Yeah.
you get to show up for yourself. And when you learn and like even explore that self-trust to show up for
Yeah.
yourself and to just like be able to hold space for yourself or to know exactly who might be the person who can hold space for you when you just don't have it in you. Because there are times, like you said, it's not like every time somebody cuts you off in traffic, you're like, peace, love, happiness. Sometimes you're like, what the, you know,
Yeah. I'm
every
in a
day is
hurry
different.
too. I
Yeah.
matter right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it's everything you're saying about having that awareness and that kindness. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of self-compassion. I'm hearing a lot of courage. I'm hearing a lot of, confidence and just
Yeah.
doing the work. Like you're actively showing up. And that might just be like you're actively showing up. You, like capital YOU, are actively showing up, period. And like that is legit life-changing.
Yeah. I will also say it can feel overwhelming at times,
Uh-huh.
right? Like how many times I call it waking up, right? Like this awareness, I open my eyes, I can't shut them again.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of like overwhelm when it comes to that because now when you have this awareness, there's a new set of, I don't know if I want to use the responsibility, but that's kind of what it feels like. There's this responsibility I have to myself to keep showing up for myself.
Yeah. Because once you see
Yeah,
it, you can't unsee it, you
exactly. And
know?
there are days where it feels like a lot, but I've I've never regretted doing the work.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's funny because like we do this work with people, like we both do,
Mhm.
and to hold space for other people doing this work. And it's like they want a structure or a map. And I'm like, well, we can create, we have a structure and we have a map and
Mhm.
it's all changeable and it's not rigid.
Yeah.
And we might be on one map one day and then realize there's a whole nother map over here that's actually required for today. And so
Yeah.
I think it's hard because there is a need for like fluidity and flexibility in order to navigate it. I don't know, with more ease, I guess. I think the attachment to wanting to know what it's going to look like is really challenging. And
Yeah.
so if you can even just trust the process, like forget
Mhm.
trust yourself, trust the process or trust the people in the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trust the community because that's really what it's about. It's like, we build safe communities and they're
Yep.
not safe for everyone, right? They're safe if
No.
if it feels safe for you. So if you fit into whatever your safe community is, can you trust that community to guide you in the process and to like lift you up in the moments that you're just like, I don't have it in me.
Yeah.
And that's it. But I think when we're in it and we get to that point of overwhelm, that's when we want the, okay, step one is going to look like this. Step
Yeah.
two is going to look like that. Step three is going to look like this. Step four is going to be that. because
Yeah.
that
And by
brings
August, I'll
comfort.
be here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brings comfort and it brings control and all those things. And I think the biggest gift of my journey, maybe there's been a lot of gifts, so I don't want to like claim this to be the biggest one necessarily. One of the amazing gifts of this journey was my understanding that control doesn't have to mean what I thought it meant. You know, control can be like my choice to trust myself, my choice to lean into the people in my world, my choice to understand that I don't have it all figured out and I never will, and that's
Mm,
okay. Like to give myself some compassion, all the compassion to understand that control as I used to relate to it
hmm
was killing me
hmm
because I was trying to control, I thought controlling the external world would keep me safe
mm.
just from all of my life experiences.
Yeah.
And all that did was create angst and anxiety and pain
Yeah.
because I had an attachment to how the world needed to look for me to feel okay.
Yep.
And it was like taking that accountability for my life and owning it and
Yeah.
understanding that I get to be in my mess
Yeah.
and I get to be in my joy and I get to be in whatever state I'm in any given moment. And I get to not beat myself up for it or wish it was different. I get to just have radical acceptance of the present moment. And I get to decide what steps I can take to lead me to where I would like to go. Like, do I
Exactly.
want to shift my state or do I want to amplify my state? Right? It's like one or the other. I either want to shift it because it's hard and
Yeah.
frustrating and I don't want to be here, or I want to amplify it because it's amazing and I want it to last as long as possible. The reality is that everything's temporary. So I know it's all going to change.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part. And that's why that control attachment gets so big. But yeah, that was a really long babble, but it's
I
just,
loved it because what I heard out of that was that, and I appreciate because this is the work I'm doing currently too, is right shifting from the attachment, and then you spoke of control as me as controlling the outside world. But what I heard you do is all of a sudden you shifted into the control is choice. I'm
mhm.
going to choose how I'm showing up in this world, and and then when you show up in a place of choice, you're not a victim,
Yeah,
right? World's not happening to you. You're interacting with the world in a way that you probably matches your value set, right? Like in a
right.
way that is comfortable for you. Wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that's the one thing. Like that is one thing I think about taking that accountability and letting this journey be yours is just so empowering, is that it's like the traffic didn't happen to me. I showed up and I became part of traffic.
Yeah.
I get to take accountability that I'm part of the traffic jam or I'm part of all of it, right? If I wasn't there, then this wouldn't, be an issue in my life. So just creating that place for choice, but then confidence that you can also, even if I like this part, even if you make the wrong choice.
Yeah. Well, I love that you said that because I think so many times that word choice, it implies like like a guilt or shame thing or like a
Mhm.
responsibility, like you did this to yourself. And sure, we did. Yes, of course. You chose to drive that day and you put yourself in the line of traffic, right? Like I
Right.
get it. I get it. I just think that word choice, it's like there's this connotation sometimes for many of us. I used to
Yeah.
show up in this way that it brought shame or guilt, like, oh, I chose wrong, or oh, I'm not doing enough to help myself, or oh. It's like knowing that you have a choice and you're taking accountability for your life doesn't mean it's always going to be sunshine and
Yeah.
roses and rainbows and glitter and sparkle, right? Like, I
No.
mean, that glitter gets messy sometimes.
Oh my
So
gosh, sticks everywhere.
find it for years.
Yeah. Don't let
Yeah.
anybody ever sprinkle it in your hair. You'll never get it out.
I know. So I just think that thank you for describing your experience in the journey. The other thing that you've been driving home, and I love it because I see it in everything that I teach, everything. I don't care if it's a class or a coaching or intuitive. I don't care what it is. It's like, yes, learn the foundations.
Yeah.
Yes, be educated. Yes, grow, study, all those things. And it will not be yours until you make it yours. It's not a
Oh,
rigid science. Like the education, like I teach Reiki, and the number of times, how do I do it? What's the steps? It's like, I'm going to teach you. I've studied with 4 teachers. I'm going to teach you all of the things I can remember from all four teachers. There's not a right or a wrong because if that were true, some of my teachers contradicted each other. Well, which one's
Yeah.
right? I don't know. Which one's right for you? That's it. You can't do it wrong unless you're doing it in a harmful, mindless way.
Yeah.
Your practice is like you said, you can't take my spiritual practice and make it mine. That's why I also have, spiritual, I don't know what to call it, spiritual trauma, spiritual abuse, spiritual whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, where I just, was tucked into a box that wasn't mine. It's not that I'm not spiritual or that I don't have faith. It's that the faith I was demanded of me it didn't look the way I wanted to practice it. Rituals are amazing and beautiful practice for me now.
Hmm.
They used to cause me anxiety and guilt and shame and angst and frustration and like a wondering what I was doing wrong because it just wasn't working for me.
Yeah. I can feel that. Like that was also a big part of my childhood. I'm like, I want this, but not in this way.
Yeah.
Right? Like these little boxes that were thrown around things. I'm like, I don't feel like a box belongs there. And
Yeah.
it's okay that they were still practicing the way they are. I just love to say, I think another big epiphany that I've had in my lifetime is it's okay, it's just an opinion,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's just your opinion on it. My opinion looks like this, your opinion looks like that. Nobody's right or wrong. We both get to have this. Outside of trying to take it from somebody else, right? So if you enjoy, a structure that looks so different than mine, I don't think that there's any reason that you wouldn't get as far in your spiritual practice just because it looked different, right?
Right.
It's
That's
how you
it. In
show
fact, you'll
up.
get you'll get way beyond where you even thought possible when it's your practice. That's
Exactly.
the thing. I'm having a fond memory of there's a master Tibetan singing bowl in singing bowl. He's a master
Mhm.
practitioner in Thailand, and he's magical. And one time we were there, we were talking, and he said, "Anything, if done from the heart, is correct." And that
Mm,
just has sat with me since. And he, shout out to Aman Shahi. He's an amazing, he's doing the work. He lives his practice.
mm,
And that's it. I learned so much from those people because it's like, oh, you're doing it. Like I was gonna say you've done this, but it's like it's not finite.
yeah.
Still doing it, still finding, yeah, it's like a ever going process and like still learning from the world, still learning from the people around you, still learning from yourself. Like we teach ourselves so many things if we just listen and
Yeah.
observe.
I know. Think about where you were a year ago,
Oh my gosh.
even just a year ago, right? You're like, oh, I've just the conversations I could have with that version of me that
Yeah.
she thought she knew what was going on. And I've learned all of this since then.
Yeah, it's
And I think people
amazing.
thought you and me both probably a year ago were probably pretty far on our path. It just is funny. It's like that might have looked like so far advanced for some people, but even for your own journey, right? And you look back and you go, oh, that was miles away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just it's one step at a time. It's
Yeah.
one thought at a time sometimes.
Yeah. I
I love what you
really
said.
love that if it comes from the heart, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did he phrase it?
He said anything, if done from the heart, is correct.
Anything.
Anything.
Yeah, I mean, that feels true,
That's it,
right?
I mean, there's so many different ways you could say that, right? Like anything done in love, anything done in compassion. It's truth. It's the way. So I think that's pretty cool.
I appreciate that. That's going on my post-it note wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So many amazing phrases from teachers and humans. I mean,
right? Yeah, I have an enormous book collection, right? Like it's my
mhm.
final addiction I need to deal with. I don't read a lot of those books. I grab
Mhm.
them, I hold them, I flip them open, and I'll find like a phrase or two out of there. And I was like, that was the whole purpose of that book arriving.
Yeah.
I just needed a couple of thought-provoking phrases that allowed me to connect. But what I always love is I always feel like everything's just divinely timed, right? Like I could have had that book on my shelf for 10 years and then I finally pull it off and I'm like, oh, today in this time, in this moment, that's exactly what I wanted to hear right now or needed to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Mm.
I love this conversation. Thank you for having it today. I think we touched on a million different points, like you and I always do when we have conversations, and yet they were all with the same focus, and that is healing,
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
within,
Yeah,
deciding.
accepting ourselves. Like I was struggling with the fact that you were saying we were whole in the beginning, and I'm like, huh, how do I embrace this? And then it occurs to me now, it's like we are whole. We just need to embrace these other parts of ourselves, right? And I call it like retrieval or integration, right? I'm kind of keeping this part of myself. I'm sort of creating that separation and just allowing it to just be part of me. I'm
Yeah.
already whole. I just have to, throw my arms around the other parts of me that I'm kind of shoving to the side.
I love that you brought that up because I also struggled with that for a while. Someone said it, like, I'd rather be whole than healed. And I was like, well, that's a great way to live because that's possible. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
I
Yeah.
struggled with it at first because before I had a big soul retrieval, to use that term. I had a big one that literally changed how I felt in my body. I was like, oh, I feel whole. And I remember thinking, well, I used to call myself broken. I used to call like and it's like all of those things that I used to say, believe, feel, know about myself were untruths and they kept me stuck and they kept me out of self-love. And
Mm.
so I think it's really important to understand that like you don't have to be healed to be whole. I was whole before I had that retrieval. I was whole and have been my entire life. My perception of that and my perspective of it may have been different, but I think if you wait to be healed to be whole, that's a slippery slope. And so, I mean, I get it if it doesn't resonate with you. I understand. I resisted it for a long time. For me, it's been a really profound like journey to acceptance of, oh yeah, I get to be whole. I
Yeah.
just do, you know, and that's pretty brilliant. I
Yeah.
don't mean smart. I mean like it's a brilliant, like full on light concept of like, holy shit, me is enough. Like me is perfect. Me is right. And these are all words that are trigger words,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when I embrace the fact that I'm whole, it means I'm me. And that's great,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, I am feeling that.
And so I think it's a slippery slope and it's a messy phrase. And also like dance with it, play with it, explore it, just, you
Yeah.
know, see what it means to you. Because I'm not a pusher. It's like if it doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't resonate with you, and that's okay. For me, it was a profound like aha, like that was
Yeah.
said to me and I resisted it and I chewed on it and I sat with it and I had more conversations about it. And it was just like where I landed for myself in my spiritual practice and in my rituals and in my being is I am whole.
I can feel that with you. Totally different than the first time you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's a different relationship that I'm spiritually having in my head now about allowing myself to be whole and
Yeah.
not living in this fractured story.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm the dam, right? I'm the one who's stopping this connection, and if I just allow, we're okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's that trust, that's that confidence,
There it
that's that
is.
courage. Yeah, and I guess one last thing I want to say, if anybody's listening that's like newer to this, my favorite thing is just play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's no right or wrong way to spirituality. You get to do it in all the ways. Well, some of my most profound moments made zero sense before I started doing it. I was like,
Yeah.
what is that? And I was lucky that I was just willing to step forward and do something that didn't look like it was going to logically make any kind of sense in that moment.
Yeah.
But when I play, I'm present,
Yeah.
right?
And there's something about playfulness that is not rigid.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it's, you know,
You get to
it's
spill the
it's
plates on the
just,
floor. You get
yeah.
to, like you get to
Yeah.
make the messes. You get to, there's no rules about what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You said there's no wrong way or wrong way to spirituality. I think that's what you said.
sure.
There is no right or wrong way to you. There's your way. There's your
Mm,
way. That's it. And your way will be messy, your way will be troubled, your way will be challenged, your way will be joyful and all of the things. It's the whole package.
yeah,
And it's not wrong because it's hard. It's if you are tapped into you and how you show up and what you need in compassion, love, confidence, courage, all those things, it's your way.
yeah.
And no one gets to take that away from you unless you let them, which is another messy, slippery slope. And I don't want to necessarily open another door and go all the way down there. Uh,
Yeah,
I'm just saying, be confident and courageous enough to live your way because that's the way that takes you to your soul, to your
yeah.
heart. It brings you back to awareness and to self. And I don't, it's hard to put into words.
It is.
But I feel like our conversation today went there in
Yeah,
so
we
many different
probably
ways.
did do a great job. But yes, that trust and showing up for yourself and being willing to do it. And as you keep practicing over and over, pretty soon it's like, I don't care if somebody's looking while I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this. It's okay. There's just all these beautiful things that start to occur. And yeah, we don't need to wait until we're much older in life to begin that journey. I'm feeling so blessed. I feel like there's a great awakening happening. I'm watching people that I never expected to be having the kinds of conversations we're having. I'm having
Yeah.
them with more and more people that definitely didn't even really realize that that was an opportunity for them.
Yeah.
And it's just great. It's just great. And I'm watching
So
them do it in
beautiful.
all the different ways and make their mistakes and really your mistakes, if you want to let them be lessons, that's all part of the divine path too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, as you're saying, I love that you're having that experience with more and more people. I'm feeling called to say, look, if you're on the journey or you're just starting the journey and you're terrified, but you're also just exhausted with life as it is, and you know it's time, even though you're terrified,
Mhm.
like dance or try or lean into, like, take Jonna's class, work with people like us, like, find your person. It might not be me, it might not be Jonna, it might not be, and if there's something about, like, I think we tell ourselves, oh my gosh, I'm terrified. And we say, well, that must mean it's not time. It's like if you're
Right.
terrified and exhausted and you're just like, I'm so tired of over and over the same stuff happening, take a chance and try it terrified.
Yeah.
Do that mindfully, because I think there comes a time where we're super terrified and also completely depleted, where we know it's time, but we just don't know how to take that step. And it's like the step is to lean into a class like you were describing, to, book a session with an intuitive coach like myself, or any kind of support guide, mentor, instructor, teacher, doesn't like something that resonates with you on
Yeah.
a way, but start with you. Does my being say yes to this energetically, physically, not logically, because we get in our way,
Yeah.
from your soul space, from that space.
Yes.
And that's
Oh, I
it.
love that. I love that you brought that up. That was probably one of my more onset learning things. Is just learning to ask myself,
Hmm.
does this feel right for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was brought up in such an external pleasing culture, right? Where it
Yeah.
was it was never about me. It was about, does this work for whoever is the alpha in this room,
Yeah.
right?
Does it work for the system of the room?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Whatever this structure is, does it work for the structure? And that is a big thing. If you do come do yoga with me, we talk a ton about creating a relationship of trust with your body. Your
Yeah.
body gets it. You got to, we have in our culture trained our bodies to say, you're not as important as my mind. If my mind decides that we are going to run the 20 miles with the, broken toe and all the things, um, and then our body just learns that we've said, the body keeps sending the messages that I need a break, I need water, I need this, I need that. The more we ignore it, the more the body learns that, like, this person doesn't really care about me.
Yeah.
And if we can come back and start asking our body, asking our soul, asking all about these parts about us, hey, do you want to do that? Or better phrase, do I want to do that?
Yeah.
And then when we get those hell yeses,
That's it.
magical stuff happens.
That's it. Yep. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
Exactly. And that's okay. We play with those spaces too. We just ask why. What's the value mismatch here, or whatever the words are that you use.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you,
Mm.
Jonna. Any last
Thank you.
nuggets?
I appreciate our Minnesota goodbye there.
Yeah, I know. I know. I knew we would do that. I can't help myself with you. I love where we go in our conversations. And I think I just think they're important to have on a
Agreed.
mic in public, you know?
Yeah.
So thank you for diving down that lane with me. I appreciate you.
Oh, well, and Michelle, I want to thank you for your years and years of guidance and support and being someone who is so incredibly grounded and still willing to reach into those spiritual spaces. It has
Mm.
just been a beacon for me, and I am so glad that you are sharing your voice in a much louder space so that it can reach those that don't get to, hang out with you in person all the time.
Thank you. Our friendship means the world, and it's amazing to grow together. I'll say it that way, because I think that's
Yeah.
it. You know, if you're not willing to grow together, then I don't know. We'll just leave it there.
Yeah. We can do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank
That's a
you.
wrap. That's a wrap for today. Bye. Be you every day.